Welcome to this video for round 10 of the Chess Olympiad 2012 in Istanbul. Round 10 also means the penultimate round, so after this there's only one round to go on September the 9th. Yeah, it's a very close call now for the title. Today we had yesterday, round 10, we had the match China against the United States, which China won. So the United States couldn't really continue their great showing against Russia the day before. And the match was won by China due to a win by Dingley Ren on board 3 against Onish, who lost a very drawish rook endgame. Quite surprised really that he lost it, because he's got excellent technical abilities, and I'm not quite sure what happened there. Russia beat Argentina. Argentina had some good rounds before, so they suddenly popped up on board 2 against Russia, but lost with Sergei Karyakin winning convincingly on board 2 and 3 draws. Then Armenia beat the Netherlands, who also had a great run after a very bad start. But Armenia won very convincingly. Then there was also Azerbaijan playing Ukraine, where Ukraine won. So with a win by Ponomarev and 3 draws. So before the last round, it's let me just look at the standings. Before the last round, China is leading the event, and if I understand the tiebreak rules correctly, if they win the last round against Ukraine, not at all easy. If they win against Ukraine, they'll be Olympic champion, and there's also Armenia and Russia in contention. But only if China fails against Ukraine, then Armenia and Russia might still win it. But I'm not 100% certain about the tiebreak rules. It's a very close call. Also, Ukraine is behind 1 point. And if Ukraine would beat China, Armenia would lose. And also Russia would lose against Germany. Then Ukraine also has got a very slight chance to still do something. As mentioned for the German watches here, Germany got Russia in the last round. So it's not at all easy. It could have been much easier in terms of the drawing. And then even Germany would have a very slight chance maybe to get a medal. But in this case, it's very difficult, of course, because for a medal you would need to beat Russia first, and maybe even then it wouldn't be enough. All right, so round 10, as mentioned, Armenia beat the Netherlands, and this is also the game that I'll be featuring. Will be Anish Giri, the young Dutch #1, only 18 years old, against world's #2 Levon Aronian from Armenia. And let's see what happened. We've got a Slav defense, and in case you wonder, I switched off the board sounds, this clucks and clocks and check sounds. I think it's sometimes a bit annoying. If you miss these, let me know in the comments. Alright, we've got a Slav defense, and Giri here plays this line with Queen b3. This line is rather similar to Queen c2, which I often play. And it's quite an interesting way. Also Queen b3, it's, as mentioned, similar. It's a very interesting way against the Slav if you don't want to contest any long forced theoretical lines, but still want to try for some advantage. Then those queen moves are interesting. Very often the variations transpose into each other if black captures. Obviously this could also happen with Queen c2, c4. And then you get this kind of position where white has chances for a very slight advantage. It's not much, but it can be something to play for in the long run. After Queen b3, however, Aronian played e6. And this is also a difference between the two queen moves. After Queen c2, e6, is maybe, yeah, not as good. Let's put it this way, because in this structure with d6, the queen is slightly misplaced on b3. It's not an ideal square. The queen would prefer to be on c2 because you're more flexible from c2, and also the queen on c2 might help to support e4 at some point, for instance. We'll see it in the game actually. Giri plays g3, bishop e7, bishop g2, both sides castle, and knight bd7. In this kind of position, for example, white would very much prefer to have the queen on c2, so that he can play b3, bishop b2, knight c3 or d2, and then e4. So let's just... Okay, this is nonsense, right? This a6. I just want to show the idea. Then white could play something like this and go for e4 with the bishop here nicely fianchettoed. In the game, got the queen on b3, and queen c2 just would be a loss of tempo. And here you cannot fianchetto the bishop, so this is also why Giri played bishop f4. It's not bad at all, but white probably would more like to fianchetto. Yeah, a5 is an interesting move by Aronian. It's a sort of semi-waiting move. It has some points. It might disturb white's queen at some later stage. It gains a little bit of space. And yeah, it's a little bit provocative also, because it's simply not developing anything. But it doesn't really hurt black in any way. White now has a big amount of moves, of course. He went for rook c1, which is designed to, in case of a move like a4, that white can safely put the queen back on d1 and then has the rook in place. This is not what Aronian played, of course. He played the tricky move h6, which really, yeah, at first surprised me. I wasn't really understanding what this move is doing. But it has some ideas. One idea is that if white would try to prepare e4 now, with, let's say, a move like knight bd2, which would be rather natural to play something like this, queen here or here, and then still play e4. Yeah, then black actually can play g5. It looks a bit weird, but it's quite a good idea. White would go here. Black plays knight g4, and he will win the bishop pair. And also, I mean, maybe he won't even take it, but he would have the possibility to take it. But he can also play f5 later, and has a very active version of the stone wall, where white has some weirdly placed pieces. Bishop e3, knight d2, not sure. This is, I think, quite good for black. And on a move like bishop e5, yeah, black can even play here. And for example, this kind of line leads to an interesting position for black. He can attack this pawn, and he's got two bishops. Okay, the c8 bishop is not great yet, but the fun thing about two bishops is it's a long-term asset. It's not a short-term thing. Very often you need some time to get both bishops into play, but if they really get going and get into play, then it gets really difficult. Yeah, this is one idea, this g5 move of the move h6. Obviously not in any case black will play g5, but it can be a good idea. Also note that this a5 move has another idea. If white would play knight c3 now, for example, then black would have the tricky move a4. The idea being, if white would take now, black can take on c4, and any recapture is met with b5, and black wins a piece. Queen c6, there's also rook a4. So here white actually would need to retreat the queen. Need to do this another way over here. would actually need to retreat the queen, and then black can play b5 and has an interesting position. It's quite nice, I think. Unclear, obviously. It's not an advantage for black, but it's perfectly alright. This is another idea of this a4 move. Giri played a4 himself, and this is, to be honest, a move I don't like very much, but it obviously acknowledges that this a4 by black is an annoying idea, but I wouldn't like so much to give away the b4 square. Maybe it's not really bad, but it's not a move that I would like to play. Okay, Aronian played knight e4. This has two ideas. He wants to get the knight to d6, probably attacking the c4 pawn, and also there's of course f5 now. So black mixes in Stonewall ideas. He played knight f to d2 now, trying to get rid of the knight. Note that if white would play here, then f5 with the idea of g5 would really be a good way for black to get active play. Okay, he went here, and now Aronian came up with the interesting move knight d6, keeping pieces on the board and just asking white, okay, what are you doing with your knight on d2 and your knight on b1? And still black can play f5, so it keeps this option open. Yeah, here Giri sort of wanted to clarify the position. He took on d6 and played e4, opening up the whole thing. And this entails some risks, of course, because it opens a position against the bishop pair. But it's not bad at all. But I think he pretty quickly played some problematic moves. Takes on e4, knight takes, and bishop b4. This is all very understandable. And I think his next move is not really good. He played c5 now. This is of course an ambitious move. If white would have enough time, then he would play stuff like this. I can also go from d2, placing a knight on c4 and knight on e4. Then this would really nicely bind on the dark squares. The problem is that it is a bit too slow, and we see what Aronian is doing now. He plays knight f6, which attacks the d4 pawn. By the way, I think instead of c5, he should have played a simple move like rook d1. Just stay put in this position. I like black anyway, but with two bishops. But this is certainly around equal. Alright, c5, knight f6, attacking d4. And now he played queen to c4. Yeah, an alternative here would have been knight to d6. Pretty much suggests itself. But then black would simply retreat. And now white has a choice. He can take on e8 or on c8. At first you think, okay, why should you ever take on c8? This is a bad bishop. But the problem is it doesn't stay a bad bishop for long. Let's say takes here, rook takes, and now even on rook d1, black can play e5. The problem is this e5 move undermines the c5 pawn also. So something like this is simply good for black, because he would take c5 and e5 is also weak. This is a tempo also. So black is very nice here in this position. The problem is simply knight takes e8. White actually needs to take on c8 and now play here. And this is still, I think, okay with this. Oops, no, on c4 with this kind of idea, or maybe just knight c3. I'm not quite sure. Knight c3 a2 could also be an idea. Yeah, but simply get rid of the two bishops so that if the position opens up, it not gets too ugly. I think maybe knight d6 was the way to go. He played queen c4, and this really leads now to a black advantage. Black took. he retook, and now Aronian played king h8. It's a good move, a very ambitious move also, as we will see in the game. Here actually he could have played e5 immediately, and black would have a very good game. The problem is if white takes it, queen e7, attacks e5 and attacks c5. Of course this is covered, but what is white doing about the e5 pawn? Let's say he would play f4 to secure the pawn, and black wins the tempo. Queen back, and then just a move like, I'm not sure which rook, maybe this one. And now the problem is, what is white doing in this position? He cannot move his knight here, because, well, it gives a pawn, or it would allow rook d2, and this is already disaster. It's, I think already lost, maybe. This is, this kind of stuff would probably win instantly. So, this is simply a terrible position. I think it's completely unplayable. Black is winning already. Or at least a very clear advantage. So after e5, which would have been really strong, white must play d5, I think, and then we would have some position like this. And I don't want to get into much detail here. It's good for black, and very similar to what happened in the game. And you see that the game was also good for black. So I'll show the game, and you see that it gets pretty similar. King h8 is what Aronian played. He now retreated the bishop to g2. Maybe it was better to play knight c3 here, anticipating e5 and now d5. Black has still a fine position with something like this, similar to the game actually again. But maybe this was still more resistance. Yeah, bishop g2 and now the mentioned e5. It's very similar to before, but the difference is that after d5, what Giri played, there's now the move f5 instead of taking, which was the move before without king h8. But now, of course, f5 is possible, and it's also a very aggressive move, intending to push further these pawns and really getting some attack, maybe even on white's king. Yeah, white now took on c6. The problem is if he plays something like d6, which looks attractive at first, black simply plays something along these lines: queen to f6, bishop to e6 and e4, and this pawn simply is not going anywhere. It won't promote, and black can always play also b6 to undermine the pawn at a later stage. So black just has a great position with two bishops, and white has nothing. So this is also, I think, why he took on c6, trying to get some material at least. And here e4 by Aronian. This was the whole concept, killing the bishop on g2 and sacrificing a pawn, of course, in the process. This is what happened. And here Giri played c6. I think you don't have much choice. If white would play a normal developing move, then something like this, rook c8, and later probably maybe even queen e7, you would get the pawn back, and then it's simply two bishops for nothing. Also, white has compromised his queenside pawn structure, so black is much better. This is why he pushed on with c6, trying to get some forcing play going to get out of this mess. If white doesn't do something concrete, it's simply that he will lose against the two bishops and this attacking ideas. So c6 is perfectly right. Bishop to a6 and queen b3 now. Here he had an alternative actually. This is the move c7, which is a little bit of a computer move. Of course, c7 is a move a human would think of also. Pushing the pawn is very natural. The problem is after queen e7 here, queen c6, then black has the move e3. And this is of course very dangerous for white, as white's king isn't so well protected. In fact, the only thing which is still playable is something like this. And if you come to this point in your calculation, you most likely would assess that as being too dangerous for white. In fact, it probably is, but it's difficult. Just a sample line here, takes on c3. It's not necessarily the best what I'm showing now, it's just a line that I looked at before. And obviously this gets dangerous. If white would take the exchange now, then black of course has a strong attack. He's threatening bishop b7 with checkmate already, so you would think about queen f3 here. But there are also there's also this idea, which also is made. it's completely difficult to assess this position. Queen f3, maybe rook c8, and in the long run, this kind of move will cost you most probably. Yeah, it's very dangerous. I think he probably thought about c7, but maybe it simply seemed too dangerous. He played queen b3 then. And now just rook c8. Black has all the time in the world. He just wants to get this pawn back and then play on with his bishops. Yeah, what should white do now? He decides to return the pawn in order for some temporary activity. It's difficult to keep it anyway. Well, knight c3 was played, and Aronian just took the pawn. And now knight d5. This was Giri's idea, trying to trade some pieces, but black can simply retreat the bishop and set sights on a new point of attack on f2. Let bishop f1 to exchange some more. And now Aronian really tried to force the matter here. He went with f4, very aggressive move. I think it's clear that black was somewhat better in the late stage here of the game for the last, let's say, 10 moves. But I think here's the last chance for white to put up a real fight. He now, I think, needed to really sacrifice the exchange here on c5. Rook takes and knight takes, and white threatens this move, winning back the exchange. So black would probably play something like this. And in this position, I think black still has some chances, of course, but I think white has a good knight on f4, some counterplay ideas. It looks like he can try to fight in this position. What he played though here, I think he loses. It simply loses. He played knight takes f4, and now here's maybe a position where you could stop the video for a moment and try to look for a good move for black. Aronian now played bishop takes f2, and this is a very strong move. The problem is if white would take it, then there's rook takes f4 and queen d2 and white gets completely wiped out. Let's say king here, and you can simply trade down here because this pin with the e-pawn to move is just deadly. White will lose all his pieces here. Maybe it's even a mate, forced mate in the long run, but simply the e-pawn push wins a piece. White only has got one check here, and now it's over. He cannot even protect f1 now. So white couldn't take here, and needed to play king h1. Now just rook b6, attacking the queen. White went to c2. Yeah, I think it's very problematic anyway, and probably losing. Also, queen d5 was also an idea. It's possible that this was a bit tougher, but black still has all the chances with bishop d7, for example, attacking the queen and getting on this critical long diagonal. So white would most likely take it, and yeah, then you simply have this idea. b2 is hanging. There are even alternatives earlier. Yeah, queen d5 is maybe not much better. He went queen c2, and now just e3. Of course, this pawn in itself is a very dangerous attacking unit, and still black has ideas of sacking the exchange. Bishop b7. It's very difficult. He played bishop g2, yeah, covering the long diagonal. And now black has multiple ideas. Queen g5 also would have been strong. Also need to mention, of course, if white would give the check here, black can simply take because of this, and now if white would retake, it's just made in 2 moves. And okay, if white cannot take on f1, then the e-pawn will get very, very ugly, and that's also simply again threatening mate. So it was played bishop g2, queen e8, now covering the g6 square. Queen g5 also was fine. Queen c5, and now he just put up this configuration of the rooks who protect each other. And yeah, what should white do? It's really a mess. b2 is hanging. The e-pawn yeah, threatens to advance. At the moment there's still this this kind of pin, but it's certainly a problematic idea. Played rook c2, covering the e2 square. But now just g5. This breaks the knight's control here over e2 and d3. So a very strong move. Knight d5 was played. In case of knight e2, there's this simple move, and it wins material. Yeah, this is why knight d5 was played. And at first, okay, it looks nice, but there's a simple move e2 now, threatening promotion. And okay, white took on a5, and now black played the simple move e1 queen. It's winning, yeah, no question. In fact, this one, rook b to d6, is probably even stronger, preparing this move, but also having the idea to get to the first rank here with checkmate. But okay, Aronian just promoted, which is of course enough to win the game. White takes, black takes, and at the end of this, black is just a bishop up, this e1 bishop. And in addition, there's the problem that these pawns are also really weakened. It's a bad structure, so white cannot really use the pawns immediately. If white, for example, would have the pawn on b4 already and be able to push b5 or so, then it's a completely different story. But those pawns are simply worthless, really, at the moment. And we see that Aronian does a good job. He needs to activate the king first. This is done. Yeah, white gave away the g3 pawn to push b4. It really doesn't matter. It's a winning position. Yeah, you've got the g pawn, which is your winner pawn. a6. Okay, need to drop back, of course, to cover a7. And now this pawn is simply lost. White played this move, but after, yeah, I think he resigned at the same time, according to my game file here. Of course, it's simply bishop takes, and here intending to play this on g3, and then black simply wins this pawn and wins with the extra pawn and piece by promoting the pawn. Yeah, a nice display of the bishop pair here by Levon Aronian, which was allowed after Giri sort of handled this opening of the center not really to white's advantage. Yeah, I think an enjoyable game to watch. I hope you liked it. This was, as mentioned, the coverage of round 10, so there's only one round left on Sunday. This will also be an earlier round, started at I don't know, I think 4 hours earlier than usual. So I'll do a wrap-up video of the last round, also announcing who won this thing. At the end, I'll do a wrap-up video on Sunday afternoon. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.